welcome back to another video. Today on the channel we'll be doing something a little different. We'll be building a modern PC. I did want to keep the John Oves touch on it, so we'll be building it in, I wouldn't say a vintage case, but a retro case. The case is from Cooler Master and was released in 2009, so at this point it's 14 years old. So I think that's going to be just the touch we need to make this a good video for the channel. So stay tuned. So I was really interested when Micro Center had this, the AMD Ryzen 5 5600 X3D. This was an exclusive Micro Center processor distributed only there. And the nearest Micro Center to me is about 2.5 to 3 hours away in Chicago. So I had my buddy in New Jersey pick this up for me and send it to me. And it came with the package, so I got RAM with it and a motherboard as well. So I have a RTX 3050, I have an M.2 SSD, power supply, cooling fan, and an old Cooler Master case. Let's go ahead and build us a PC today. I got the ASUS seal here, we got our motherboard, and then inside the box we've got all of our accoutrements. We've got a SATA cable, the I/O shield, a couple of standoffs, a couple of screws, some M2 sticky pads, lots of stickers, some technical information, a manual, and of course a CD. I don't know how many people are still building computers that have CD drives in them, but this case does support 5.25-inch drive, so I might just slap one in there since we got a bunch. Anyway, we'll figure that out when we get there. So I'll take the board out. So let's just start with the M.2. Now this machine does have two M.2 slots. I'll be using the one closest to the processor. Comes with a little screw and the drive itself. So we'll take the heat cover off of that. And those are captive screws, so they don't go flying out, which is super nice. All right, so we'll go through our accessories here. We'll find the extra pads, the M.2 drive, since this is a slim one. And we'll just put this on top of the existing foam pad here. What we're looking for is this to be nice and level and not dip down. That looks pretty good. All right, and since this is a low height one, we also need to use these risers to make sure that we're not bending our SSD. So I'll take a drive back out now that it's flat. I'll add this little riser, then I can take my SSD, pop it back in, and that is a perfect fit. So now I'll use my screw that came with the SSD, although one came with the motherboard as well, and we can just tighten that all the way down since it's nice and level all the way across. So we've got the foam level in the middle, we've got the riser letting the screw be level at the end. So when it's all complete, perfectly straight, no stress on it, not bent, now we can reapply the heatsink cover. So I'm going to peel the part number off very gently. And I'm just going to stick that to the case in case I ever need it. And then the board has some thermal transfer compound down here. So if we put this back on, it should allow the drive to get rid of its excess heat right into this little heatsink here. And this is spring loaded, so you can give it a little bit of extra torque when you're screwing it in. And that is our M2 installed. All right, next let's install our processor. So this again is the Ryzen 5 5600 X3D. This processor was exclusive to Micro Center, and what it is it's a I believe a 5800 that failed testing that they're just kind of offloading for relatively cheap just through Micro Center. So keeping them out of the landfill, I guess, but it's supposed to be a good performing processor, so I'm interested to install it and try it out and do some benchmarking and see what we get. So anyway, in the case we get warranty, processor, and a cool little sticker. So this uses the AM4 socket, which has the pins on the processor, so you want to be careful not to drop those, damage those, bend it. So we'll take our ZIF socket, open up the lever, and then we want to make sure that we line this up the correct way. So on the bottom here, there's a little gold arrow pointing to the arrow on here. So this goes in this way, and if you got it lined up right, it should just drop down. And then you can close the ZIF socket. So we got our processor installed. Now the next thing we need to do is install the heatsink. All right, so this is my heatsink that I'll be using. Here are the fans. We got our two fans and our 2 power heatsink. So this should keep things running plenty cool. So I believe this is designed to run on AM4 as well as Intel's socket. So I think in the mounting hardware kit, there's going to be things specific for the AM4 socket. All right, so these are mounting points that can go underneath. We'll need to take the existing mount point off, and we have the metal clips, and then the fan cables here. So the first thing it's telling us to do is to take out the existing plastics here. So let's do that. We'll just unscrew those. So note that the mounting plate installed from the factory will be reused here. We want to make sure that we keep that in place here. So the next thing to do is to take out metal supports that the heatsink's going to clamp onto. So there's two sets in here. I think the straight ones are for the Intel ones. I'll set those off to the side. And then I think these ones are for the AM4. So we want them with the peg sticking up and curving in towards the processor. And then it's asking us to install part number K. So we're going to be doing spacers like so, and then the rails on top of those with the peg sticking up. All right, and then we'll tighten those four down. So the next step, it wants us to apply the thermal paste. See, they sent me some here. I know there's lots of people that do it different ways, but I am pretty happy with the results I've gotten from just doing a glob in the middle like this. All right, now it wants us to take the heatsink, and it sits on top of the processor like so. These screws go into the pegs. So that's our heatsink installed. Next, we'll be installing the fans. Fan header is over here, so we want the cord to come out that way. All right, so I've got the metal clips on for my fan, and drop that in between the cooling stacks. Clip that onto this side and clip it onto that side. Label is the direction of airflow. We want airflow to go to the back of the machine. All right, got those clips installed. And this fan's going to be a little bit higher because the heatsink here for the motherboard's a little bit in the way, and that shouldn't be a problem. All right, and then I'll hook that into my fan duplexer as well, and then I'll just plug that right into the board. And then the next step is to install our RAM. So it's the two lighter gray ones are the slots we want to install. All right, so we'll do the one closest to the fin stack first, make sure it clicks in, and then we'll do the one closest to the edge of the board next. So I'm gonna lay the case down, and all of the things on the front panel door just do the connect, and the door gets to go off to the side. That'll work for our purpose. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to install, and you can tell this is an older case because the power supply is at the top, which not where power supplies go in modern cases. So I'll set that up here. I've got my box of screws here to dig through to find screws to install it. All right, so we've got our power supply installed. So the next thing we will install is the board into the system. So we've got our SSD, processor, thermal compound, fan stacks, fans, and our RAM. So we should be good to go. Well, before we do that, we need to install the IO shield. With that installed, we then can drop in our board. Luckily, this case already has all the standoffs in place. And then I will go ahead and fasten that down with some screws. All right, so I've got all of my screws in place. Let's see them all in here. So the next thing I want to do is to connect all of the power. So we've got the ATX connector, ATX plus 4. We've got the CPU power here. And then we will install the video card right after that. So unlike more modern cases, these older cases didn't really have a provision for much in the way of cable management. It's no big deal. I mean, it's just going to look a little sloppy. This one does have a window, so you'll see it, but it's not great cable management like we have in new cases today. So we got my ATX plus 4 connector here. See if I can move that in with my camera here. Kind of in the way. All right. Push that down until it snaps in. There we go. And then next we want to do the auxiliary CPU power. So that's this 8-pin connector here, CPU, and that's what's going to plug into this one. All right, so we've got that one clipped in. So next we can go ahead and install our video card over here. And next we'll take off the cover. And now we can drop it into our slot. All right, looks like we have a good fit, so we'll screw that down. Connect our 8-pin power up. So we've got these 6-pin plus the 2 extra pin connectors here coming out of our power supply, the PCI Express extensions. All right, and then we'll plug this in here. All right, so that's our video card installed. Now the next thing we want to do is connect all of the front case connectors. So that's power button, reset switch, LEDs, front USBs, things like that. So I've got my case front here with the wires. I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's a little hole here for all of those to route through. All right, so with that there, we clip the front back on. All right, so this gives you a clear view of all of the different connectors we have up here. USB case fan, USB case fan, chassis fan, T-sensor, control, but then further over on this side we have all of the interconnects for the LEDs and the buttons. All right, so this AAFP way over here is going to be our HD audio. This one is keyed. This pin number 2 here is missing. All right, so we've got that connected. System panel header, and I've got my guide here showing me what goes where, and there we go. Everything's set that we need to test this system, and we'll give it a first power. All right, so I've got the system behind the monitor here. Got the monitor set to HDMI 1, HDMI cable connected, keyboard connected via USB to the back. I have a mouse connected here to the front panel USB. All right, so I'm gonna flip the main power on for the power supply, and then I'm gonna hit the power switch. All right, we had fan spin, we've got blue system light. Oh, there we go. So it's seeing our 16 gigabytes of memory, DDR4 2133. It sees the CPU, 3300 megahertz, 5600 X3D, 6-core processor. All right, looks like it's good. And there it is. And our mouse works, which means the front panel USB ports work as well. So I think everything is looking good. So let's just save and exit. We can come back in here and fine tune things later. Just wanted to make sure that it posts. And so we don't have an OS installed on here yet, obviously, since we just built it. So we will need to do that, I guess, at some point. So this is an internal card reader. It uses a standard USB port, and it's got compact flash, XD, SD, memory stick, as well as a USB connector with some status lights as well. So this came in an old system I had, and I think it'd just be kind of cool to slap this in here since this guy does have a 3.5-inch floppy drive, which most cases, new cases don't. So we'll install that. And I'll also be installing this black DVD drive. This is SATA, so this will work just fine in the system, and it matches the case. All right, so let's get these drives installed. We got the DVD drive here. I think this will be a nice touch for this system. All right, and then the next thing we wanted to install was the memory card reader. So this is going to go in the 3.5-inch bay. All right, so then we need to hook those devices up. So the USB one will be easy. We just take the USB cord, make sure it's keyed correctly, and then just drop that into the USB port in the board. No problem, that one's good to go. Then for the optical drive, we'll need to use a SATA cable. Luckily, ASUS has included 2 with the motherboard. Before we do that, we will hook up power to it. So we've got SATA power from our power supply, and then we'll connect SATA to the motherboard. Looks good. So then we have these extra cables. We'll just tuck these up here into this 5.5 drive bay section. We'll tuck the extra length of these cables up into there and make sure everything's just kind of hanging out. We'll tuck this one. And again, these old cases just don't really have cable management. All right, and there it is, our build complete. So next thing we need to do is install Windows on it. So I will do that, and then we will be back. All right, so I've let it burn in for a few days. You can see the uptime here has been up for 4 days. Just wanted to make sure everything was good. But we've got our 16 gigs of RAM. We've got our CPU currently running at about 3.8 gigahertz. We can see our cache here, our base speed, and if we scroll down here, we'll see our GPU. There we go, it's our RTX 3050. But there's one key ingredient that we have yet to do, and that is to put all of these obnoxious ASUS stickers all over the case. All right, so let's do it. I've got these ones too, one for the RAM and one for the processor. Okay, so I'm not going to really put all those obnoxious stickers all over the case, but I'm going to put a couple on just for fun. This the RAM one, the G-Skill RAM, probably not going to do it. I do want to put this Ryzen 5 sticker on though, since that's the reason that we're doing this build. So let's punch that on here somewhere. Maybe right above the USB port would be a good spot for it. Here we go. That looks good. And are any of these ASUS stickers worth putting on? There's this card, you know, in case all of these labels here and the lights and everything don't, indicate everything well enough for me. Go ahead and remind myself where I put my cards. That's where the cards go. Thank you, ASUS. Let's do one set of wings on one of the slot covers. Or not slot covers, bay covers. So one last look at the outside here. So again, this is an older case. Power supply's at the top. It's got this nice window here. There is a space for a case fan here to bring some air into the card, but I think we probably have enough ventilation without it. But I hope this video was helpful for you building a modern PC. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.